prayers of those I love while traveling o'er life's rugged way, that I may true and faithful be and live for Jesus every day. I want my friends to pray for me, to bear my tempted soul above, and intercede.
Good enough, right? Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome, welcome. It's a beautiful day here, and we are happy. We are delighted. We are. Please turn it off, the light, because of the screen.
Oh, I turned it on so I could see you guys.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm sorry. Welcome to all of you who are online with us. We are here to celebrate life. I was explaining to Ivan, Ivan is here with us. I was explaining to him what happens here. He's there in Brazil, and I was telling him this is, it's an American way of dealing with the loss, and it's we don't do that this way in Brazil, and it's a great way to celebrate the life of someone that we love. It's a beautiful way. It's a great way of finding closure as well. We're obviously always going to love our dear Eugene, and we are very happy to be here. So I've been thinking about, just if you find anything unconventional, it's because this is the very first time that I'm doing a memorial. So I'm doing it the Brazilian way, right? if that is one. So I'm going to introduce myself. Not everybody knows me. My name is Marcos Apolonio. I am a licensed clinical social worker, but I have also a theology background. So I was a minister before. And so I met Eugene, I would say 7, 10, 15 years ago. We had a group in San Francisco. There was a discussion group called Second Wind. And I knew Peter already, and Eugene and Peter have a story that goes way before that. But we met and we stayed on that group. That was a discussion group for 5 years. And please, thank you, Sylvia. Have Charlie around. Welcome, Charlie. So, and then that group dissolved, and we created one group. We created a group called Church 1.0. That was not necessarily a conventional church. There was another discussion group, and Eugene stayed with us there for 7 years. So Eugene is definitely the kindest soul that I have ever met. I can say that he embarrassed me with love, because I remember, as the friendship was developing, I have this guy telling me that he loved me so much in so many ways, and I got used to it, and I profoundly miss that today. And I learned to tell my friends and the people who I care for that I love them as much as I can while I have them. During that process of Second Wind and Church 1.0, while we were in Second Wind, we had somebody who came and helped us to put together our vision for life. And all of us, we wrote our vision and the definition of who we were. And as I was doing a search on all my hard drives and memories that I had this week, trying to gather information or things that would be relevant for today, I came across Eugene's vision for his own life. I was so happy that I found, and that's what we have in the screen here. So this is Eugene's vision for his own life, and I'm going to ask anybody could read that for us, please. Go, Robert.
I'm a bringer of light, embracer of difficulty, song of
I told the wife it should be okay because I was afraid to have
is to communicate kindness.
the teacher should this big letter
Sing to the song of hope.
Yeah, sorry, there is a typo there. So of resilience. that's such a great description of who he was, but isn't it? You know, it's just in every detail. He really worked on this, and in every detail, it really expresses who he was, and I would say who he is. You know, he left that with us. So, and you know, such a blessing to know Eugene. A little bit of the beginning of his story. Eugene was born in August 1st, 1944 at the St. Vincent's Hospital in Jacksonville, Florida. He was the child of Irene Yvonne Miller and Evans Frank Murphy. And he was adopted. I don't remember, I didn't find the information when, but I know he was adopted as a baby, right? By Mary Annette Richard Spies and Arthur Eugene Spies Sr. And they gave him the name of Arthur Eugene Spies. I don't know how Sean came to the picture, but I know that's how he was called, and some people knew him by Sean. The other thing that I did this week, because when we had Church 1.0, we were live streaming that. Peter was doing everything he's doing right now. So I went through the archives a little bit. I wanted to hear his voice. I wanted to see Eugene, the records that we had of him. So I brought, small, 3 little pieces of Eugene participating. His participation was always welcomed, always to the point. He didn't speak a lot, so when he did was like a gem. He always brought something important to the discussion, deep and profound and impactful, and I really appreciated that. So I brought 3, 4, actually 5 little pieces. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to let Eugene talk. Oops, the sound didn't come through. Very good. Let's try again. Any questions?
I'm just thinking, I was trying to relate to this on as personal a level as I can, and I was using the analogy of how I feel within this group, and I have not a single doubt in my mind that I belong in a group context. But I think for me what it's saying is that if for any reason suddenly this group were removed from the equation, that I would still feel a sense of belonging within myself. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does, because yes, you're talking about that. It's so profound and so admirable. It's fascinating, right? It's such a life. And I don't want to do what usually we do. So somebody passes and we just beatify that person as if they were the holy saint of the all ages. And that's not what I'm going to try to do here. I don't think we need to do that. And at the same time, this man, he went through so much in life, so much rejection, and being who he was since day one, trying to find his place in the world. And here he is saying, talking about belonging and talking about being whole, finding himself, connecting the sense of belonging. Even when I'm not in the group, I still belong because I am whole. I belong to myself. I belong to God. I know that I belong to people, even though he was referring to that group that was meeting there. Even if the group is not here meeting physically, I still belong. Next, let's see the next one on belonging still. Oh man, then we'll move on.
I think too, it's a little bit easy within the context of what we associate as belonging, is to somehow not tie it into ownership, that kind of belonging. And for me, it works more to my advantage to equate belonging as equals wholeness. So if I belong, I'm a whole person.
Thank you. Thanks. Very good. Another piece, he talks about the deciding factor for a successful life journey. So when he talks about this journey, life as a journey, what is the piece that he finds to be the key to live life successfully? One of them, of course. Eugene.
And I think too, for me anyway, the deciding factor in whether or not this journey we're being asked to go on is successful or not depends entirely on the element of trust. Because we're being asked to go on a journey that we did not pick. Most of the time we're quite content with the one we've been on and would rather kind of stay there rather than rock the boat. So without the trust factor, the journey is not going to be successful.
Right. So there you go. Another one. You know, sounds like a Buddhist talking about life. You know, life is hard, it's very difficult, but if we accept what we have and we trust the process, we trust the universe, we trust God, things are going to be much easier. Because we didn't choose this path. We didn't choose to be here. There are lots of things that we have no control over. But here we are, nevertheless. So, you know, enjoy the ride and trust that things are going to be okay. If you have any comments, you know, please feel free to say something. Everybody's so quiet here and also online. If you have any comments,
yeah, they can unmute to.
Please
They can raise their hand.
raise your hand online or here. Robert says something here.
You know, one thing that really struck me as impressive about Eugene is, and just like his videos and when I talked to him in person, it was a lot of acceptance. There's so much acceptance of what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And this last clip about faith, you know, it resonates, acceptance to me.
And there was not someone with an easy life, right, Robert? There was not an easy ride. Never.
It was very inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah. What strikes me about these last few clips and what you just said is how incredibly consistent he has been over I've only known him for, 8 or 9 or some years, but very, very consistent all the way to his last days. Like incredibly consistent in this view and in this expression and how he expressed himself so beautifully. So carefully chosen words. He had a real talent for carefully choosing his words, and that I so appreciated because we talked about some really difficult things and really intense discussions, and he was just so consistent with that. And the other thing is that, you know, it wasn't that it was easy for him to be accepting. It wasn't that it was easy for him to be graceful. He had anxiety and things pissed him off. It wasn't that he had some sort of special existence. It was that he worked so hard at being graceful and being accepting and being loving, and he knew what his values were. And he showed me, I'm sure all of us, but in these last few months especially, actually last few years, he showed me that work and what his work looked like. It was very genuine, very transparent. He wasn't trying to hide that this was a struggle and that this was a daily process for him, you know? He was just really accountable about his own life, his own feelings, all of that. So oh boy, that makes me miss my conversations with him watching this stuff. Yeah.
Anybody online, if anybody online would like to say something, please raise your hand on the Zoom feature, or just raise your hand, and you know we can.
And unmute.
And unmute so we can hear from you too. Okay. So let's go for the next clip.
And I think for me, within the context of fidelity and what that really means, is that within the relationship I have with God, There's nothing that I personally know of at this moment, or nothing that I can even perceive that if it came about within that relationship would give me any desire to walk away from it. That it can withstand any or all of that. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yes, yes.
You've heard that before.
That although there are challenges to the relationship, it doesn't mean that I want to walk out of the relationship.
Right. Because there's nothing that I can perceive, even in my imagination, within the context of that relationship, that would cause me to want to leave it.
Anybody? Amanda just arrived. So he talks about his faith in God, not as and knowing Him. It's not a blind faith, right? He's not saying I'm here and I'm going to take it all. I'm going to accept it all. That's not what he's saying, and that was not his life. What he's saying is that considering everything, considering this mess, right? Considering all the challenges, considering all the difficulties, considering all the things that we cannot understand, considering all the pain, considering all the rejection, all the losses, the poverty, considering the situation of the world, considering the results of elections that we really struggled with, considering everything, I still have decided that I'm not going to walk away from this relationship with the divine the way that I perceive it. And the other thing is that he's not saying this is the formula, this is the equation, this is what has to be applied to everybody. He's saying this is me, this is what worked for me, this is how it works for me. That's my story.
He's very humble.
Very humble, extremely humble. Yeah. Okay. And the last clip that I'm going to show here, and then I'm going to open so other people can also share their piece. Eugene and
I think too, I know this is true for me, so I won't speak for who is told. But somewhere deep inside of my heart somewhere, I still cling to the notion that God expects me to be other than human. And number one, that's an impossibility. I am human. And being human, all of these things that you're talking about are part of being human. And so I don't try to repress those when they happen to me. And I realize that no matter how hard I want to or try, I'm still going to do those things, historically. So I don't think that we will ever reach a point where we don't have these kinds of assertions that float back. It's just part of what it is to be human.
so it's also, it's interesting that, some of the clips are years apart, and I find it fascinating that he always introduced himself in exactly the same way. I told Peter that I hadn't noticed that before, but looking at this, that it's, how we are ourselves, right? We are always going to be ourselves the way that we present, and that's what he does there. And here we see the process. He says, I still cling to the notion that, God expects me to be something other than human, super different, holy, saint, whatever. And he says, and I know that it's not possible. I'm just myself. Because this comes after a long discussion of flaws and challenges and internal struggles and mess ups and everything. And so that's why he has this reaction. And what he's saying is that we are who we are, and that's totally acceptable. That's what being a human being means. We shortcomings, challenges, difficulties, some rainy days, bad hair days, and that's how it goes. Okay. I have two little ones to show at the end, but I would like to hear from people who are here, and I would like to hear from those who are online with us. So it's your time. Who goes first?
Dick and Norma have their hand up.
Oh, Dick and Norma. Okay, great. And they are, and let me stop. I'm going to stop sharing here for a minute because it's better, so other people can talk. And Peter are going to be moving the camera around here. Okay, so. Okay.
Nice.
Thank you for the waiting. Dick and Norma, please.
Yes, I was, as I looked at those video clips, I realized how much I miss Church 1.0. We're sitting in our car, having just attended the Loma Linda University Church, which is where we are members, which is just the opposite of a small group of 15 or 20 of us that met in that beautiful space. We had a 50-piece brass choir this morning, a wonderful sermon and all of that. But there's something special about what you created there, Marcos. And I wanted to thank you again for the blessing that we received. But I think what you did is you created the opportunity for Eugene to share with himself, with the group, through what you shared this morning. And it was a very special gift. As you said, he didn't speak a lot like some of us do, perhaps too much. But whenever he spoke, it was profound, it was deep, very spiritual, showed a very deep connection to God that I know I was blessed with during the several years that we attended there. I'm really going to miss him because he was, as you said, the kindest man that I knew, and his whole demeanor conveyed that kind of kindness that was involved. So I want to give honor to Eugene and also to you, Marcos, for creating the atmosphere that allowed for that to take place. And Norma, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes, I listened to this deep faith of Eugene, and I realized it was a very simple faith, which for some people might be deceiving, but that simplicity came from a very deep, well-journeyed, difficult life. And so it wasn't just platitudes. It was not just an easy saying. It came from the deep part of his soul. And I think that's what I admire and want to emulate.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think, you know, talking about the community, the community was created by all of us. So I was not alone there. Next person.
Martha.
Marcos.
Martha, hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you, Martha.
Thank you. I'm in Walla Walla.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, I love you guys. I miss you guys. And I learned so much from you all, but especially my brother Eugene. And I'm going to really miss him a lot. But he was a very important friend in my life. And like you said, he's the kindest person. And I would say also the most honest, gentle, honest man. And what else can you say? I mean, those things. He loved life and he enjoyed, but he was also very deep and serious. So it was many, many blessings.
Absolutely. And I know he loved you, Martha. He always talked about you. He always referred to you. He always asked for prayers for you. You know.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you are one of those who were not with us sitting there in that circle, but where you were always present. You are always part of the community. You were our satellite.
Thank you. Well, I tried to, because we have so many struggles in this part of the country up here. There is very little recognition of LGBTQ community. It's a little, been very struggling, and on the campus of the university, it's still struggling. in the town of Walla Walla is still, it's just on and on. And so to keep that awareness, to keep that alive, that is crazy, and much prayer. But I do believe there's progress. A lot of it came out of San Francisco, and that was such a blessing to be part of it and to learn, because I had to learn many things, and then I try to teach when I learn, because I'm a teacher, and I try to share what I learned, and good things that must be passed on, and that's just where it is. And just grateful, though, very grateful for the beacon that you are there, and of course people like Eugene who show us how to live it, and that's the greatest power, is just live it.
That is.
In my view.
Thank you, Martha. Much love. Much love to you.
Oh, thank you, Marcos.
Thank you.
Love you too.
Next person. Anybody else? Who is next? I know that people want to talk.
I think Robbie's trying to.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I should say, church family.
Hi, Carol.
Nice to see all of your lovely faces that I haven't seen in quite some time. I just wanted to be here to participate, to acknowledge the grief. The time just went. There's just never enough time to really spend with someone that you greatly admire and love. And what I mostly appreciated about Eugene was his genuineness. He was really genuine and real always, and that's a rare trait, and I truly just appreciated his friendship. And I'm sorry the time went out to really get to know him even longer and more, but God knows best, and he's certainly out of his pain and suffering. And we can look forward to that happy reunion one day with all of our loved ones. And thank you, Marcos and Peter, for creating this space for us to get together and remember him in such a special way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you very much. And also acknowledging that this doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? We have experienced so much losses, so many losses these days, these last 2 years. We are not done with the pandemic yet. It has been very traumatic, and we don't even know the impact of this on the collective psyche and heart and memory. We're still processing a lot of stuff, and here is another hit. We need to acknowledge that, and we need to stick together.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to say something too. My name is Barbara, and
Hi, Barbara.
Hi. Sylvia, Eugene, and I, we used to work together at Alternative Family Services. And what you showed today is how I knew him. He was the kindest, sweetest person to work with. But if something was wrong, if something was socially wrong or was done wrong, he would speak up and everybody would listen, because he wouldn't do that a lot. And over the years, we stayed friends. We texted a lot. Unfortunately, I haven't seen him for a while, but we texted a lot. And he's one of these few people who could convey something through a text that people can't even convey in a conversation. So it was always very deep and profound, and we connected. I felt a true heart connection with him, even if we were only texting. And so I miss him, love all of you. I think you're a beautiful community that has wrapped around him. And I think he has given us as much as I see everybody giving him. So thank you for today.
Thank you for your words, Barbara. Most of us here have not worked with him. We are not surprised, but it's wonderful to hear that perspective, that other side that we didn't experience. Somebody else?
Hi, I'm Janet.
Hi, Janet. Welcome.
I have been Eugene's neighbor for 25 years.
Oh, wow.
So if you know where he is in the back, I'm in the unit next to it. So yeah, I think the last woman stated a lot of what I knew, where just we would text, and he would just have such kind things to say. He was, as you're all saying, just like the nicest person. During the pandemic, I would call him out, do you want some food? Do you want this? And he's just always, oh, I'm okay. But he gave me a sense of security back there because it was just us after Bob passed. And he was always watching for me, and I knew he was there. And I checked through a lot through his, I've been up in Oregon, and he would just always, I just felt like there was a little angel next door, protecting me. And I'm gonna miss having that there.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you putting this together, and I'm glad that I'm able to meet his other friends.
Thank you so much, Janet. Yeah, an angel watching over us, right? So how many times did we got that message in the morning? How many times we got that text? How many times we got that, hey, how are you doing today? Just to say I love you and have a nice day. And here's a beautiful picture.
I'm just going to miss the bright.
Your camera is off, Ruth. If you don't have to turn it on, just so you know.
Oh, okay. I'm going to really miss the bright, sweet, thoughtful messages that I get from him every now and then. My husband and I were privileged from early days of his attendance at San Francisco Central Church to be part of some rather pivotal points in his life. And his integrity just touched us. And we formed a bond through many situations that, although we didn't have contact often, yet we would get these wonderful, inspiring texts from him.
Yeah.
And when I'd be there, it was just like we'd been together the day before. Almost always when I would come to San Francisco to visit my family, he would be part of our outings. And what a wonderfully comfortable person he was to be with.
Yeah.
And I experienced worship with you at those times that I just treasure. I go back to them for inspiration often. So I want to thank you all for the love that you've extended to everybody, to any outsiders.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you very much. You are another person who also, lived far away, but we are always an integral part of the community, always there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else online or here with us?
Not too much, but I'm gonna miss. I mean, I met Eugene over 21 years ago when I started working at AFS, and thanks to him, is that I'm still there because he's the one who taught me everything. I mean, a lot of stuff that I know from there. And he left after almost 2 months after I started working. Then he came back to a different office in Oakland. So he was traveling from San Francisco to Oakland. Then it was an opening in San Francisco. So he went back to San Francisco. And I was so happy with him. I mean, he's like, it was always great. It was beautiful to work with him. it was funny too, because you know him, like he was so gentle and so kind and everything. Oh, but when he was upset, he was, my God, it was funny. It was, but then the phone, I mean, he was like cursing and everything, but the phone rings, and then, hello, this is Eugene. He was like a completely different person. But yeah, and we see each other. Then he left after when he retired, and we kept the communication with the contact with via text, or once in a while we see each other, and it was always beautiful to talk to him, because like all what he says, and what the first thing that you put over there, I'm sorry, he was so deep, so kindness, and it was always so beautiful to spend time with him.
Yeah.
That I'm going to miss him a lot. Like all of us, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I love you, and I hope to see you someday.
Yes.
In another place.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you, Sylvia.
You're
Thank you very
welcome.
much. Miljoy, you have raised your hand. Hi.
Hi everyone. It's been really beautiful being able to hear all of your reflections on Eugene, and just to be able to go through my own memories. I have so many wonderful memories of Church 1.0 and our family's time with that community. I was reading through an old message thread that I have. I just have old messages messaging with Eugene, and like so many of you have said, even his even gave good text, and over text message, just his love and affection. He just he didn't save it. Like he freely gave his every communication we had. He was always just freely giving his love and his friendship. And when I think about my interactions with him, he really gave the gift of presence. That unhurried, when you're talking to someone and their full attention is on you and their full focus is on you, and you don't feel like you're a bother to them. Like he just created this space where he was fully present, and like took the time to connect with you. And that's what I remember overall from our interactions. And in scrolling through my messages with him, I had forgotten, but one of our very first interactions when we moved to San Francisco, I had a 1-year-old. He was and then he was 1 at the time it happened, when I'd gotten to know Eugene a little better. And he gave me this little it was like a coupon for a meal service. And as a young mom who was mostly sleep deprived at that time, it was such a sweet, simple yet necessary gift. And I remember using it. I had forgotten, but reading through my text messages, I wrote to him something like, "It was a lifesaver. I needed like nutritious food, and your gift came in so handy." And he was just so gracious about it. He said something like, "I love it when life works." And he was just so gracious and so kind and so giving. That's something I'll always remember, just his presence and his big heart. and his kindness. So thank you to all of you for sharing your memories. They've been really wonderful to listen to.
So nice, Mil Joyce. How many moments of those we had with him. Thank you very much. Robbie, we would like to hear from you too.
Okay. All right. Eugene is my uncle. He was given up for adoption by my grandfather before he married my grandmother and created my dad. So he technically is my dad's half brother. I am the only biological family that Eugene has ever met. Unfortunately, I did not get to see him until January 2021, December 2021. Anyway, but Eugene and I had been in contact for 20 years. I found him, and he has known all about my children, all about everything that's gone wrong with me. And Uncle Eugene is everything I've ever wanted out of a maternal person. Sending me messages just saying, hey, I love you, and I saw this and thought of you, and there's so many pretty flowers, and I hate that I am the only biological family that he's ever met, that he ever got to meet. He deserved better. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Robbie. Thank you very much. You know, we heard about you. You know, he mentioned you many times. Completely
I've done
agree.
so for 20 years. For 20 years, you know, like texting him, but I didn't get to meet him until last year.
So glad you did. So glad you finally met him.
Gosh, are you kidding me? That was the best hug in my entire life.
And he, you know, as many people in the LGBT community, we have to create families for ourselves, right? We create links for ourselves, and he did that. He did create a wonderful support system for himself. He created bonds that are.
How could you not love him?
Yeah.
If you met him, how could you not love him?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that, you know, goes that there is a comment here from Ivan that I found very interesting. He says, I didn't know him personally, but I came to admire him through Marcos, and God bless you, Eugene. So, you know, that's the kind of person that he was. Even those who didn't know him get to admire him because he was really one of a kind. Anybody else here?
He was.
Oops, sorry. I muted Robbie here. If you have more to say, Robbie, please unmute yourself. Do you have anybody else? Lisa, I know that you prepared something. I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, no.
Do you want to come over here?
Not really. Hello, everybody. I'm here with the traditional life summary part of the program.
Lisa,
Hey, Robbie.
I love you, Lisa.
I love you too. So, Steve and his kids are here. Hi, Steve. Hi, kids.
Steve is there?
Not here.
He's on Zoom.
He's on
yeah.
Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so we're trying to work up, an obituary to publish online so that everyone who hasn't been involved recently knows, that for the historical record. And Steve was so gracious to sort of develop this into a life sketch. So just to sort of give an overview of Eugene's life, I wanted to read what we have so far. And then I have a little something I want to say. Okay. Arthur Eugene Sean Spies departed this life on January 23rd, 2022 at Coming Home Hospice in San Francisco. Shout out to Coming Home Hospice. They were amazing. In the company of loving friends. Born on August 1st, 1944 in Jacksonville, Florida, he was known throughout his life for his gentle nature, love of animals, music, flowers, and all things beautiful. To a host of cherished friends, he leaves behind a glowing example of how to live a graceful, authentic life with a splash of sass. Thank you, Peter, for that little turn of phrase. That was true too. His quick wit, impressive vocabulary, and fluence in 3 languages is testament to a powerful mind focused on kindness and the nurturing of relationships with others. After growing up in the Jacksonville, Florida area, Eugene lived in Atlanta and was a member of the Beverly Road Seventh-day Adventist Church. After an extended visit to San Francisco, Eugene returned east, where he lived with the Connor family in Atlanta, and then in Sequatchie Valley, Tennessee, from 1974 to 1977. He returned to his adopted hometown of San Francisco in 1977, where he lived for the remainder of his life. All or most of that time in that same apartment, I do believe. Yeah. He was a treasured member of several church groups, including Second Wind and Church 1.0, where he developed close and devoted friendships. Eugene found several careers during his life, including in the airline industry, travel industry, management of a bakery, and most recently with Alternative Family Services, a provider of foster care, adoption, and mental health services in Northern California. I think that's where several of you guys met him too. Eugene is preceded in death by his adoptive parents, Arthur Eugene Spies Sr. and Mary Annette Spies, and by his partner and longtime friend, Robert Allen Hatfield, Bob, like most of us, to whom he was also always known as Sean. He is survived by a beloved niece, Robbie Murphy of Vidor, Texas, and by his chosen brother, Stephen Connor, and his 3 children, Carson, Evan, and Gabrielle, who he considered his nephew and nieces. A memorial service is held today, blah, blah, blah. Arthur Eugene Sean Spies will be interred at Bethlehem Cemetery in Lake City, Florida, between his adoptive parents. So Steve is making that happen, which is super lovely. And I just wanted to say that I'm so happy to have met the people in this room through Eugene or with Eugene. Many of us through Church 1.0, but also his other friends who I've met more recently. It's been really great to get to know you guys. And it's a lot of people have thanked me, and I think thanked Peter for the stuff that we've done for Eugene in the last few months. But I just want to say that it was an absolute gift that Eugene gave me.
Amen.
To trust me, to trust us with his affairs and with his care. And I'm trying to learn from it that when we ask for help and support that we need, that it's a gift to the person. It's another thing that he taught me, and I know it intellectually, but he really showed me what that means, to trust someone enough to lean on them a little and let them in. Eugene was very, very independent and was very used to doing things his own way, and it was not any easier for him than it would be for any of us to have to lose his agency and to have to not be able to do things that he used to be able to do. But he was such an amazing example of turning that over, giving over to grace, asking for what he needed, relying on love and the divine and the relationships he had throughout his life and all the way to the last day of his life. So thanks, Eugene. I love you. I miss him every day.
Anybody else here or online? That's something would like to say?
I don't know how to say it.
Okay, come Peter.
I met Eugene, Sean, at Central Church in the early 80s. I think it was in the early 80s. And I knew him as Sean Spies. And he was, even then, a very authentic person. And it's sometimes within some organizational things, he was frequently upset, and you saw it and you knew it. The interesting thing, and in my parents, my mom spoke, and my mom and dad had a very close bond with him earlier than I did, and then later on we became friends too. And just the interesting thing is he stopped going there, and for some reason I kept in contact with him. I was just kind of like, hey, how you doing? Just email days. And then second wind started, and I started going to second wind. I'm like, just kept going. Eugene would like this. The organized church wasn't for him. He might like this. So I would just every now and then, you want to, tell him about it. And I knew that he was very independent, and he liked his solitude. And so he says, and later on, he was just like, I finally ran out of excuses, so we went. And it changed his life. And that's where he really found a community. Second Wind, and then on with continuing on with Church 1.0, just the broader community. You can tell that he had really strong relationships with people throughout his life. But that sense of community that he'd really never had, that big sense of community, and also people that he could lean on and trust, and knew that he could be authentic with, which was what he was going to do. It's what he was going to do anyway, but there would be that support, that he could be honest, and people would honor him for that and respect him for that. And he would, he was, by the time he'd gone to coming home hospice, and he was texting me, needing things, and this is, an independent person. And Lisa can vouch, just these sweet texts of like, well, if it's convenient for you, and if it's not too inconvenient, and if within the next couple days, can you get me, or, it's still, that's like, oh, this is urgent, but he was still like, the words he chose were just so special. And just the honor, like Lisa said, sorry. It was such a pleasure and such an honor that somebody would trust you to say, will you take care of my affairs when I'm gone? And then, and like Lisa with the medical, and with me with personal things, these having to bring up these tough conversations, and he was just so gracious about it, and knowing that it was hard for him, but that he chose, this is what I need to do, and I'm going to do it. And when he went to coming home, It was his choice to go when he went. He walked in there. It was not crisis. We'd had some interesting evenings before, days and evenings
No,
before.
he chose to have me.
But he you know, it was a blessing that he chose to go when he went, and he walked in there and was just like, this is cool. You know, it's a beautiful room, and it's like,
I was with him whenever he.
I don't have to worry about anything. I don't have to sit in my apartment going, oh, this needs to be taken care of. Oh, I need to get this ready for Peter. Oh, I need to do that. It's like, no, we'll deal with it. You know, he doesn't have to deal with it. We'll deal with it. It's just to see that smile on his face, that is like, and just the willingness to go, here is my life. Here is where I'm at. I have all this cancer, who knows where. I mean, some are known, but there might be more. But it's like, here I'm on my journey to my death. I'm just gonna see what it's like. I'm just gonna take the journey. I don't know that I can, you know, I've never seen anybody do it in that kind of grace. That just like, okay, here is where, this is my reality. Let's go, let's take the journey. Anyway, obviously he gave so many of us so many lessons and things to think about, and just what a wonderful role model.
Well, you and Lisa have brought up the word I was thinking of looking for. That you were so intentional in everything you did.
Yeah.
It's just with the purpose and having thought it out and had the idea and did it. And that's where he and I think sometimes didn't see each other, because I was more spontaneous and more unafraid of the unknown. And when we talked, I would always try to direct the conversation to consider this and consider that and try to, you know, and it was like, he was like, but I'm very intentional in what I believe and what I am, and this is where I, you know. And so there was always that little tension between I felt that, and yet you still learn from that. And I learned a lot about it. I just learned so much about grace, even if it was intentionalities.
Yeah.
I think I'm brave enough to speak.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Charlie.
It's been a while since I've seen a lot of you. Bear with me. This has been the first loss in my life. So I'm not sure if I'll be as eloquent as Eugene was, but I'll definitely try. Eugene was just kind of always there. I know I started out going to second when was, oh God, how young was I? 5, 6, something, enough to walk around, enough to be annoying. And then Church 1.0 happened. And, you know, I'd only be able to come like 4 times a year, maybe, whenever we'd make the trek over from Modesto. And the moment we'd walk in, it was peace. After a hellish car ride with my mother. And I'd sit down in one of those nice, comfortable, not comfortable chairs. And he would saunter over to me with such flowery grace, such elegance. And he'd sit down next to me. And he'd lean over to me in just the most delicate way and talk to me as if I was an actual person, which for me was a big deal. And he'd always pull me to the side and put his arm around me. cut my arm a little bit as my mother was being distracted by various members of the church. Thank you all for doing that. And he would just say the most amazing things to me to make me laugh, to make me smile. And he'd always whisper them in my ear just enough so only I would hear them. And he made me feel like I was so special. Closest thing to a grandfather I ever had, though, he hated it when I said that. It's like, I'm not that old. I'm just like, so it doesn't seem to do him justice to call him a grandfather. As someone who has, well, you've all seen my growth. I've transitioned into what I am now. It took Eugene dying for me to realize how much of my character is from him, mimicked from him, learned from him. I strive every day to be so similar to him. Everything, literally, from my hand gestures to the way I walk a little bit to how I hope to speak as profoundly as he could. He had a way with words that was magical, and it was like hearing it. It was so eloquent. This whole experience has really put being mindful in the foreground the last couple months. Being really mindful of what I want to achieve in my life, what I want, what is really important, what really matters. And I'm really proud to say that I had the opportunity to meet such a beautiful individual. And I'm proud that I could take some of the lessons from him and hold them close to my heart. Because not many people get to meet someone like this.
Yeah.
It's a rarity, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really happy that I got to be here right now with all of you. So that if I break down and start sobbing, I never will fucking rush in and help. Because being alone in Modesto, away from all y'all, it's rough. It's always going to be rough. So when I am here, surrounded by a church family, it's the closest thing to home that I can usually get to. So I want to thank every one of you for being here for me these 20 odd years. And I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you very much. Beautiful. So, do we have anyone else who'd like to express themselves here or online?
I found that on an app on his computer where he had taken selfies over a course of several years. Sometimes only once a year, kind of around the same time, other times several times a year.
No, the last one. Come on.
Thank you so much for everything and everything that each one has done for us. Talking about that, and we would like especially to thank Eugene for everything that he has done for this community. That was his birthday this week, so we love Eugene so much. And here it goes. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Eugene.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for being here from afar, and for all of you who are here with us. Thank you. We are going to carry this man in our hearts and minds for as long as we live. Thank you. Take good care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you, Marcos. Enjoy the rest of the day, everyone.
Thank you, Carol.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
I need the prayers of those I love while traveling o'er life's rugged way, that I may true and faithful be and live for Jesus every day. I want my friends to pray for me, to bear my tempted soul above, and intercede with God for me. I need the prayers of those I love. I need the prayers of those I